Right. Hello, everyone. This is Krishma. I'm here to anchor this session, interesting session on Gen AI and BFSI sector. Thank you very much for joining in. I will kick off the session with the first question, which I have here. So, Gen AI seems to have brought a revolution in thinking technology, similar to how smartphones have brought in a paradigm shift in everyone's life a couple of decades ago, right? Gen AI seems to be very promising to individuals and businesses. Now, if we average out the general sentiments around Gen AI, there are two very distinct clusters, one who are fascinated with the sheer power and others who are reluctant due to the same reasons, I guess. So, how is your company or your industry seeing this wave? Are there specific instances you want to talk about that differentiates between hype and reality? And should we start with you, Santhanam?
Sure. Thanks, Krishma, for that kind introduction. I am always an early adopter in technology, and I am glad to be part of an organization that feels that way as well. So we aspire to be early adopters, and there have been uh, several products that we have launched already in the industry, leveraging some of the Chat GPT and Gen AI models. Broad GPT is one, and there are a few others in the pipeline. And there are Bond GPT is one, and there are a few others in pipeline. There are a few that are internally rolled out as well. So overall, I feel Gen AI is going to change the way we look at developer productivity and also the way we interact with AI models. And that's the beauty in my view. AI will get democratized with Gen AI, more enabling people to use natural language to interact with AI models. So that's something I'm looking forward to.
Interesting. Meghavi, would you like to add something to that?
Sure, Krishma, and thank you and pleasure to be here among you all. And a great question, very relevant, right? And I would like to take it more from a capital market scenario where we're seeing a lot of use cases, for say instance, coming around sentiment analysis. How would you suggest funds or stocks based on certain customer parameters or market sentiments? Algorithmic trading, where you can augment decision making by identifying which are the buy side and the sell side opportunities, and how do you prescribe the next best action. There's a lot of fraud detection and prevention around various business units is again another very simple use case and a common use case that we're seeing. One of the use cases around risk intelligence, for instance, how do you enable firms to assess a client's creditworthiness by analyzing factors like, transaction and credit history, investment preferences, income growth. So this all data insights, can also provide a lot of support in the post-trade and the pre-trade risk analysis by computing, for instance, initial margins and being able to generate predictive models. Also, a lot of use cases around portfolio analysis and stress test is what we're seeing. But I would like to touch upon a different perspective also, where we should also look at where not to use Gen AI, right? Because the hype surrounding Gen AI can lead us to apply it in a lot of different use cases where it might not be a good fit. And if you look at all the AI techniques, they are not mutually exclusive. So you can often combine them in a way that you can create a stronger overall systems. So I feel that the organizations that have developed that ability to combine the right AI techniques are very uniquely positioned to build stronger systems. So, for instance, it is very important to look at, for use cases in the categories of prediction and forecasting, planning, optimization, autonomous systems. Currently, probably not a very good fit for Gen AI models. Again, if you're looking at rule-based systems or simulation, traditional ML models work really great. So I think it's very important to look at how do you use the traditional ML models, combine them with the large language models, and see how you can create a holistic system. think that's my perspective.
Excellent. No, that's very rightly said, Meghavi. I mean, we have to figure out which particular use cases are fitting and which are not. Srivatsa, you would like to kind of share your views?
Sure. So one of the things, because everyone here works with banks or works for banks. One of the things is because it's a heavily regulated industries. Uh, Banks in India at least have taken this stand that they will not use Gen AI for customer-facing use cases to start with, right? So we are primarily focused in India on use cases which will improve productivity, which is like in operations, right? And even there, we want to have that feedback with the man in the middle, the person in the middle who will validate the output, and basis that over time we can take a call whether something like this can be used for customer facing use cases. So from that standpoint, call center is one area where Indian banks are looking at, where there's a lot of productivity gains to be made with Gen AI. So for instance, there is call quality scoring which happens largely manually today, right? There is post call summarization, which the call center agent is expected to do, which kind of cuts into that person's productivity, right? Likewise, there's a lot of attrition in call centers. I think that's a known problem. So, how do you solve for that with Gen AI? You can create like real time assist for agents, right? Where depending on the context and you have a lot of historical data on the customer, you can assist agents in real time. Uh, Likewise, how do you enable sort of branch operations, right? Customers walk in, queries, so many products, so many processes, not possible for someone to know everything. And these are some of the real use cases that we are seeing in the Indian context, where we think that there will be like a step function sort of improvement in productivity if we are able to use this technology. And once it is proven, that's when Indian banks will look to sort of move to more customer facing use cases.
Absolutely. That makes a lot of sense. I mean, customer touch points, wherever we are having customer touch points, it is kind of looking to be very, very lucrative. Excellent. So let's change gears a little bit and talk a bit about adoption. We talked about some use cases and how do we adopt it. Now, we know AI has been there for decades, and almost every industry, every company is using it for some or the other use cases, right? Some of the other initiatives. Now leader like us are actually keeping our jobs because of that, right? So now Gen AI is no different to this. We are looking at implementing these Gen AI use cases for business, trying to get some ROI out. Now, how and what components do you think are to be considered while we are building a adoption strategy? So Ashwini, you would like to share your experience?
Yeah, sure. And I think a lot of other panelists sort of covered use cases in variety of scenarios, right? In some of the retail banking use cases, capital market sort of use cases as well. I think it has to be use case driven. It has to be right to left. And then the use cases and the business impact becomes important. However, to your point on short-term gains or short-term proof of technology, proof of concept, I think it was very important for firms through the last year and a half to try out a few things and understand the realm of possibilities. That is where some of those short-term tests and POCs were important. But I think a lot of firms and banks specifically are now saying, I understand that there are possibilities, right? And the possibilities need to be understood in specific areas. I think one of our panelists, Srivatsa, sort of said decisions like, I'll not go for customer facing use cases first. I'll keep it more internal facing, enable banks operations, for example, and then make sure that I have some human in loop and help them do things faster, more in a more productive manner. It's not just to back office operations. It's going to IT operations. It's going to customer service operations, etc., etc. So now, as people are starting to say, how do I take it to production? Because that's where the rubber meets the road, and that's where you drive impact. and see ROI for your investments, it is about how do I make it long term, and it is slowly starting to get to what does it mean not for one use case, because typically one area would not be one use case itself. If I'm talking about underwriting and onboarding, that itself may have a KYC automation, then you may have a document processing automation, you may have a customer facing bot where the customer can get some insights on the fly as he's trying to negotiate, etc. So if I have to truly make this real, I have to understand what is the right base platform that is appropriate for my kind of use cases. And that platform has to be based on, okay, what are the kind of foundational models I need, what kind of prompt stores I need, what kind of uh, uh, open source utilizations that I could bake in into my platform, and then how do I monitor it in a manner where my costs would go up as I ramp up on my use cases, but then it should start to tone down, as I scale my use cases. Cost per use case should start to come down. Specifically for banks, it's not just about cost; it's also about that platform ensuring data security, not just on how data is getting used, but it's how it's getting used for training the models, and then what the models actually give out. Because you cannot really give out PII information. You cannot give Ashwini's information to, let's say, a relationship manager who should not be knowing anything about Ashwini, right? So some of that needs to be controlled for, and then responsible AI, where making sure that specifics of policies uh, that the bank may have for a given product for a set of customers, that they need to be followed. And then, since Gen AI would be a sort of a black box, how do you make sure that those policies are put in place, and there are specific guardrails and hallucination controls that are put in place as well. So I think firms are moving towards being able to create that platform, create policies so that it become more Gen AI ready, and then implement specific use cases. There's a lot of investment now in long-term thinking, and not just for one use case, but how can I do it for the organization, for the enterprise, build that platform, make sure my policies are ready, and then start implementing use cases.
Right, right. Excellent point you bring in. I mean, we start with more investments maybe in the beginning, but then we should actually be having a long-term vision in plan, and costs should start to tone down as we bring in more use cases. A lot more scalability can actually be added, and that's where the ROI starts to come in. Interesting, Ashwini. Okay, yeah. Let me put up a fresh question, Prateek, for you. So BFSI has always been front runner in terms of tech adoption, maybe because of the sheer amount of money, I don't know, lying around, or because of fierce competition. But much of this has been driven by ecosystem of fintechs who specialize in niche technology. I mean, banks like us, like HSBC, Wells Fargo, our core business is not technology. We have to rely on these outsourcing or these partners in the ecosystem to help us with technology solutions. Gen AI seems to be in similar space where BFSI industries definitely looking for these tech unicorns or startups to provide custom solutions. What, in your opinion, would be the trend? I mean, they are just coming up, right? And do you actually foresee any challenges?
Yeah, I think I agree with you. I think our core business is money, not technology. However, I think certain trends that we are seeing is there, like, I mean, the startups, fintech startups, especially in AI, Gen AI, like mushrooming, right? Every day you get like an invite to say, okay, can I pitch this? Can I pitch that? Right? I think you probably need to look at the offerings, and then align it with the business cases as to does it make sense for you or not. But then some of the startups that we are engaging, and we're trying to also see if they want we can incubate in our offices and things like that, are around especially on the LLMs, right? So there are a lot of startups that are coming and pitching us that we have this integration with LLM. You don't have to worry about anything. Just integrate it with the IAPI, and then this will work just out of the box, right? There are another set of startups that have kind of pitched us around training data, right? So organic or synthetic data, and I think there is some value in it, because for banks like us, we definitely want to look at we just don't want to rely on a vendor, but then we do want to kind of look at where is that data sourced from. We just want to make sure that if we use that, it shouldn't kind of land us in any legal suits and all that, right? But I agree. I think this whole ecosystem is going to help banks like us, and we here at Wells Fargo, we kind of thinking also to kind of have a formal way of engaging with these startups. So in Hyderabad, we have this Telangana government's initiative where a T Hub, right, where they kind of curate the list of startups, right, and then kind of come present to us. So that's a few bits that I think we are seeing. I'm not sure if you're seeing anything other than that. We'll be glad to hear.
So I would say last but not definitely the least is talent. I mean, while GenAI itself is, spearheading this revolution of bringing paradigm shift in kind of talent, they themselves are promoting, right? These kind of jobs will be there, and these kind of jobs probably would have to change. So what kind of career journeys are we foreseeing in near future? I mean, both from a future leader standpoint, people like us, I mean, they would be next generation who is going to take up our roles, right? So what kind of career journeys are we seeing with GenAI, and is there a pattern which young generation should take inspiration from, right? If I may pass that on to you, Srivatsa, and please share your thoughts.
Thanks for that question, Krishma. So, uh, I think so. There are traditional data science AI roles which will continue to stay and evolve. So, we have this new beast, which is the LLM, which has come in. But traditional roles will stay. Data engineering will take on sort of a new lens now, because the thing with LLMs is a lot of data is unstructured, and while data governance, ML ops, these are like solved problems in the structured data world, there there isn't a lot of progress that has been made in terms of unstructured data. So that's like a completely new area and a new set of skill sets that people will need, right? I spoke about human in the loop. Human in the loop will continue to be there. They will continue to, they will need to understand AI, they will need to evaluate AI, and then again that role will evolve. So it will need to be assessed from the different lens. Bias will come in, ethical AI will come in, right? And in addition to that, I think traditional career roles will also undergo a change. So for example, infosec, classically they have been focused on application security, digital and so on. Now there's this new thing that has come in, which is Gen AI, where, and there have been instances, right, where Amazon Q, for instance, leaked data center details, which is supposed to be a secret within AWS, as part of a question that was asked to it. So there are information leaks that have happened. So that's again another sort of new area that they need to worry about, infosec, because earlier for them, a model is deployed, it's fine, it does some prediction, it is fine. Now there is this unknown, that will my data be used for training the LLM? How do I make sure that does not happen? What checks do I need to keep in place? What agreements do I need to have with my vendors to make sure all of that does not happen? So that's how I see it. I mean, the traditional roles will have to add on like sort of new capabilities, and there'll be new sort of roles that will evolve, especially around responsible and ethical AI.
Interesting piece. Ashwini?
Yeah, I think very well laid out. Srivatsa. I think the way I tend to think of this is, if you think about cars, how cars have evolved from where they were to where we are. We could do driverless cars today, right? So I think about when we talk about talent, it has to be about what are companies looking to do, because this talent would then work for companies. So they're linked. We should be very clear: are we building tools that will be useful to build the car? Am I in the business of building the car, or am I in the business of using the car to provide a certain kind of services? Uh, and because I'm in the business of using the car to provide certain kind of services, I may need certain capability to be able to service the car, have some tools to be able to fix the car. But what is the core, that I'm close to? And I link that very much to our world as well, right? what is becoming, we went from an era of, I know when sort of I started, you would be doing data analysis, linking it to business impact, all of that by yourself. As technologies evolved, it was a case of specialization, and now it is becoming, you need to be specialized, but you need to be aware of, what the whole 9 yards is about. So that is a little bit of a shift. But yeah, I think having clarity on Gen AI is another tool to build a car, and then the car then needs to be used for certain purposes, and that purpose has not yet changed. To Srivatsa's
Yeah.
point, banking, banking's processes, the decisions that you need to make, the fact that you're using data, new data may come in, hence information security roles may have newer, dimensions. How do I train data may have newer implications, right? How do I manage cost? How do I will have newer things that you would have to monitor for. So I think the roles would be in these three buckets. Am I in the process of building LLMs? Am I in the process of using LLMs, etc., to be able to enable a platform that can then enable use cases? Or am I in the business of actually implementing those use cases? And connect that to Meghavi's point as well, right? If I'm a bank, I'm in the business of implementing those use cases, then I have to be clear on build versus buy. It cannot be completely cut and dry saying, oh, I'll just do use cases and do nothing below, because I need to be
Right.
able to have some clarity. So I think
Right.
these points are connected to careers as well. Right?
Right.
Where is my primary and which are my secondary, then to be aware.
Absolutely, absolutely. Pratik, if I may just ask you to please chime in on this. Ashwini talked about, and Srivatsa also talked about the roles
Sure.
which people are building, right? But how about leadership? I mean, if we
Yeah.
really pinpoint the leadership piece to it, right? What is
Yeah.
it that you see? Yeah.
Yeah. Uh, I think leadership needs to have this vision onto as to how. I mean, as I think Srivatsa and Ashwini said, I think we need to look at what is it that the organization wants, and then kind of see and kind of fulfill that strategy. So, for example, when you're hiring today, I mean, you really need to look at the tools and the technologies, right? So, for example, the person who is a developer, it may be a Java developer, but we know that few years down the line you may need Gen AI capability. So is that person well versed with using prompt engineering? Can that person use tool like Devin, which is coming in the market, and then do efficient coding? Because I don't think in the long run it's going to matter whether you have one developer or 10 developers. What you need is basically the right developer who can basically perform 10x at a 10x level or at a 100x level, right? I was also reading, something this morning. So there is a guy called Praful Dhariwal, right, who Sam Altman actually referred. So this person actually is instrumental in creating the GPT 4.0, which now Chat GPT is referring to, right? Now think of the impact. And this guy, by the way, joined as an intern. So think of an impact, right? I don't think you need to be at a certain level in the hierarchy, or you need to be like a leader. I think going forward, the talent we need to look at it is, can they do 10x, right? And what an organization needs, can this person create the right impact? Does this person have the curiosity, the learning ability for something that's going to come in next 2-3 years? I think that's where leadership is going to play a very strategic role. I think leaders need to develop that strategic mindset, especially when it comes to talent and hiring, right? Those are my thoughts.
Right. Thank you. Excellent sum up. So just to wrap up, I guess we touched upon very interesting pieces. One was on the hype and reality piece. Thank you for sharing some of the interesting use cases. We agree that it's not entirely hype, right? I mean, we are looking, Gen AI is coming. And then we talked about adoption, some of the cost factors which Ashwini brought in, where he said that long-term gains are to be kept in perspective, because scalability will probably bring in ROI. And we spoke about the fintechs, the startup ecosystems, and thank you Meghavi and Santhanam for sharing those interesting thoughts around that. And then lastly, on talent, I guess lots and lots to learn for our young generation. Wasn't so easy for us either, but the world is changing and people have to be literally on the toes, I guess. So thank you very much for your time and sharing your thoughts. and hopefully we will keep connecting after this as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. Thanks, Krishna. Thanks,
Thank you very
everybody.
much.